Where does Helios come in? Was the Roman Byzantine influence so profound and deep at the time that it just prevailed throughout the land?
I think it's mocking Helios.
Mocking.
It's turning the pagan god, which is no longer a threat to us. We don't mind putting him. We actually step on him, okay, coming in here. And it is Helios, like everything else, which is dictated by the Almighty, our God, who for some reason is not enabling us now to have the temple. But he will determine when the time will come right, and that will be fulfilled.
Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to this very special clip from the Watchman TV show on TBN. We're about to head to Israel's ancient biblical Jezreel Valley with our good friend Danny the Digger Herman to go inside a 1,500-year-old synagogue, the Beit Alfa Synagogue, which I consider one of Israel's real hidden archaeological gems. Now, as you'll see, there is an incredibly well-preserved mosaic floor inside the remains of the synagogue, which depicts the ancient struggle which still is going on today between paganism and those who follow the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I don't want to give too much away. We're going to go to the clip with Danny in a minute. Before I do, real quick, I just want to encourage you to subscribe to the Watchman News channel right here on YouTube and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video like this is posted. And secondly, be sure to tune in to the Watchman TV show every Thursday and Friday on TBN. If you love the newscast here on YouTube, you will love our weekly TV show on TBN every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, without further ado, let's go to Israel's ancient Jezreel Valley inside the Beit Alfa Synagogue to get to the bottom of an ancient archaeological mystery. Take a look.
So the scene here, Eric, is very clear. A biblical scene of the bonding of Isaac. Okay, it even has Hebrew. On the other hand, what appears in the middle is so not Jewish and so shocking.
Well, I know that's clearly biblical, the binding of Isaac, as you said, but this looks like something involving maybe astrology or the Zodiac symbol.
This is the Zodiac. In a synagogue.
In a synagogue.
Yes.
Now, I'm thinking right away, Danny, of graven images, and that is forbidden in Judaism. The binding of Isaac clearly makes sense, but the Zodiac in a synagogue, why? Yes. How does this happen? Okay,
that was a big mystery. And when this was found, Sukenik concluded that this is an extremely liberal community, like reforms.
Today's version of Reformed Jews.
Yes, yeah. They are not the Talmudic rabbis and their communities. This is a different community who has its own rules, and they're extremely, extremely liberal when it comes to figurative art. And it contains Zodiac, and even more shocking, are you ready for this? What's the subject in the middle? The sun god on his chariot. These are supposed to be horses. Helios in a synagogue.
Now, let me ask you, Danny. Was this because these Jews who obviously ran this synagogue, were they true believers in the sun god and the Zodiac, or was there pressure from their Byzantine overlords, I guess you would say?
But the Byzantines are Christians. Why would you put pagan scenes? It puzzled scholars and still does to this day. But let's complete the review, and then I'll propose what I think is a brilliant interpretation to all of this. Okay. So on one hand, we have the bonding of Isaac. We have here the very pagan Zodiac. But at the end, just beneath where the Ark and the scrolls are kept.
The Torah scrolls would have been there 1,500 years ago.
Yes, in this elevated platform. Yeah. Again, you have clear Jewish symbols. Menorah on my side, on your side, and the shofar. Okay, this is supposed to represent the 4 species of the Tabernacles feast. Mm-hmm. Here is the shofar and the machtah, the incense shovel representing the Day of Atonement.
I am puzzled too, I have to say. Number one, again, I can't stress enough how this is such an incredibly well-preserved and impressive site. These beautiful 1,500-year-old mosaic floors. But Danny, we have the shofar, the menorah, the binding of Isaac, these Jewish symbols. It's clearly, this makes sense to me, but mixed in with the paganism.
What does it all stand for?
What does it all stand for? On one hand, you would say, hey, these people were observant Jews. It seems they were observant and they connected to their traditions. On the other hand, you have Helios, the sun god, in the middle of the synagogue. Wow.
Yes, it was shocking, and it still seems quite shocking. You don't have any Jews, even reforms, presenting pagan gods in their synagogues.
No. What was the climate like at the time in the land of Israel for Judaism? Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, the temple had been destroyed nearly 500 years prior. How could this happen? I guess would be the question I have. Was this accepted in the land of Israel at the time among various Jewish communities? Were they an outlier here, or was this kind of common at the time?
So we thought that this was an exceptionally liberal group living on the side of the Jezreel Valley.
Yeah.
When it was found for the first time in the 1930s. But then we found more. We have similar themes appearing today in about 5 or 6 synagogues. We have one in Hamat Tiberias. We have one in Na'aran. And when we found another example of an ancient Jewish synagogue with similar themes, Ze'ev Weiss, who was the archaeologist leading the exposure of the one in Sepphoris, he went on a sabbatical. He fought for a whole year about it. And when he came back, he published a book that is suggesting the interpretation of all of this.
Wow.
And the title of the book says it all. Promise and Redemption. Promise and Redemption. Where do you see it here? Ze'ev Weiss argues the promise is the promise made to Abraham. Mm-hmm. He was willing to sacrifice his own son to show his blind faith of God. And in return, God promised him, one day your descendants will multiply like the stars in the sky, like the sand on the shore, and will inherit this land. Was this fulfilled? Yes, the promise was fulfilled when the temple was built, when David created the united monarchy. It was fulfilled again when the Jews returned from Babylonian exile. But the time that this mosaic floor is made is not that period. The temple is in ruins.
That's right.
And the Jews are congregating only in small synagogues like here, trying to determine when will the promise be fulfilled again and we will be rewarded with redemption. So this, Eric, is actually a metaphor. It's not what it stands for. It's not the Zodiac itself. It stands for the Almighty, who determines time, who determines the future, who moves the sky, who moves the sun, who moves the moon. He will decide when the time will arrive and the promise again will be fulfilled and we will receive redemption. Brilliant.
Okay, if this represents the Almighty, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, who we see right there, where does Helios come in? Was the Roman Byzantine influence so profound and deep at the time that it just prevailed throughout the land?
I think it's mocking Helios.
Mocking.
It's turning the pagan god, which is no longer a threat to us. We don't mind putting him. We actually step on him, okay, coming in here. And it is Helios, like everything else, which is dictated by the Almighty, our God, who for some reason is not enabling us now to have the temple. But he will determine when the time will come right, and that will be fulfilled.
If that's correct, that changes everything. Because we started out saying this is a very liberal, reformed synagogue, very loose. But all of a sudden, that kind of shifts things, and this becomes a very traditional, conservative synagogue that's actually mocking paganism.
It's almost mainstream, but for some reason, the Talmud does not express it. The Talmud is expressing the rabbis, okay? The certain line of spiritual leadership, and this is the voice of the public itself.
Yeah.
Okay? This is another lesson I've learned from another great professor, Professor Israel Levin, okay? Who wrote an extensive book about, ancient Jewish synagogues, and that's his opinion. I'm quoting again, greater people. And it's all just an amazing presentation of real Judaism in the time of the Talmud, in Byzantine period, waiting for the promise to be fulfilled. And in a way, it has been that the Jews are back. We are the sovereign power. They were an oppressed minority back then. Not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the Jewish population was not large 1,500 years ago at the time. There's always a Jewish presence here in the land of Israel, but at that time, lacking influence, lacking numbers, of course. Well, Danny the Digger, you are not only an archaeologist and a tour guide, you are an historian, of course, my friend. I loved how you laid it out today. I guess you could say this is a bit of an ancient mystery.
Yes, and if the interpretation is correct, we are still waiting. When the Almighty will decide, when the time will come right, and the third temple will be rebuilt.
Yes, you can only imagine the artist who put this mosaic together and did such a fantastic, beautiful job. He was looking ahead to a day, perhaps 1948, when the state of Israel was miraculously reborn.
It's the beginning of the completion of the promised redemption. Exactly.
Yes, it is. And one last thing to mention before we go, there are many ancient synagogues that are being uncovered in this region.
We in total have over 130 ancient synagogues that are known, but only 20 to 30 have mosaic floors. This specific theme appears in a few in this region. So it was a shared belief by the Jews of the Galilee, which is interesting because the Galilee is also the homeland of the Mishnah, the Talmud, and also these views.
Yeah, it's such an impressive site. I don't want to leave, but we do have to wrap it up to go to another site. Danny the Digger, always a pleasure. Great to be with you in this incredible site. And hey, in your old backyard where you grew up, even more special for us.
Yes, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be on your show
always,
and present these delightful discoveries.
I would call this a hidden gem in Israeli archaeology.
Yeah, you don't have many visitors here.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's well worth a visit.
And hopefully that changes and people come and see this awesome site. Danny, thanks so much. God bless, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you. God bless you too.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman newscast episodes every weekday.